Well, hello everybody and welcome to another Women on Boards podcast. My name's Claire Braund, the Executive Director of Women on Boards, and today we're going to be talking about the Women on Boards partnership with the Governance Evaluator. And we've partnered with GE, as we affectionately call it, to offer affordable, high-quality board evaluation services, ones that support your organisation to build its governance capability. Why are we doing that? Well, in our view, the Governance Evaluator is the most straightforward, intelligent and cost-efficient way to improve your governance performance and enhance director effectiveness. But you don't just want to hear it from us. You want to hear it from organisations that have tried and tested this service, have been using it and have found that it has in fact significantly enhanced their governance capability, but also really streamlined some of their operational efficiencies. And so today I'm delighted to be talking to Maryanne Puli-Vogels, who has the distinction of being the chair of the Timboon and District Healthcare Service. So hello and welcome, Maryanne.
Hi Claire, thank you. Glad to be here.
Delighted to have you. Thank you for making the time. So for all of the listeners around Australia, where is Timboon and what is the Timboon District Healthcare Service?
Timboon is the best kept secret, I think, of Australia. We're based at the southwest coast. So think about the 12 apostles and then drive 15 minutes towards us into Dairy Farming District. And that's where we're based. And probably you'd know us for the Timboon ice cream, the Timboon distillery. We've got a great gourmet trail that many tourists come and seek out. And it's beautiful. It's really gorgeous country. Beautiful. So Timboon District Healthcare is nestled in Timboon itself, the little town, which currently has around 800 people, 800 to 1,000 people. And but we've got a catchment area of about 8,000 people that we service, as well as the few million tourists that come and visit the region annually. So that's where Timboon is, and that's where the service is currently.
And so you've got about 8,000, but of course they're spread across fairly large catchment areas. So that means the health needs of people are fairly diverse, because I'm assuming you've got people having babies and you've got aged people, you've got people who've been in the area for years, and you've also got, I'm assuming, the tree changes.
Oh, look, it's forever changing, but particularly in the last 12 months or 6 months even, post-COVID, we've had in the past a fairly steady population. It was quite predictable, an ageing community in fact. But now what we're seeing are all the people coming in through Melbourne. I mean, the property market's gone through the roof. We've got subdivisions happening all around us, not just in Timboon, but Port Campbell, we've got Peterborough, all of the regions, Cobden, many people coming down. So that means we're continuously looking at our population, the population that we serve, to identify the needs of the community. We're a multi-purpose service, which means that we're community driven. Our allied services that we provide have to meet the needs of our community. Aged beds, they're flexible, respites flexible and dependent on what our community needs. So what we have found is whilst we've been able to create a strategic plan for 4 years, we're actually reviewing that constantly because the dynamics of our population are forever changing, and it's changing fast.
Yes. And of course, as a board, you have to keep up with that. Now, you came on to the board. It was a baptism of fire because you came onto the board and became chair. Why did you think that you needed the Governance Evaluator, and how did you even find it? How did you come to connect?
That's a good question, Claire. I didn't know I needed it. I suppose that's the first thing. I joined, as you rightly said, 4 years ago, and then 5 months into it, I was nominated to be chair, which I was quite happy with. I'd just recently retired from my corporate life. I'd moved from Melbourne to the country, so it was a good way of embedding myself in the community. And as you say, I was first-time chair. I'd not been on a board before. And not only was I a first-time chair, but I was on a fairly new board. I joined when the department had actually announced the 9-year rule, which meant that 6 of our board members had to leave. So we lost a lot of history about our board. And we had a lot of new people who were like me, who had not done board work before. They're leaders in the roles that they've played, but really were quite new and dependent on previous people on the board and also finding our way towards it. And as part of that exercise of finding my way around it, I realised that we had a licence to this Governance Evaluator previously. And when I asked the question what it was sort of that secret that you tucked away and, pulled out when you needed it. Now, just for those listening, my background was in online education. So I've always, valued the use of technology to deliver information to users. In my case, it was education. You could deliver education via technology quite successfully, and we've been doing it for many, many years. I was probably a pioneer in that in the early 80s and continued my career down that path. So finding the Governance Evaluator was actually music to my ears, because I knew that we could actually leverage this. So that started a conversation with Fee. It started a conversation and a demonstration of the product, and it got my thinking going as to how can we leverage this to really upskill our board, and not only upskill our board, but to identify what it is that we didn't know about our organisation. And I think that was the important bit, particularly because I wasn't from a clinical background. What is it that we did not know? What risks were we facing? What governance and governance issues and governance protocols were we needing to cover off. So that was my start, if you like, and that led to the conversation. So it was a continuing license, but it was actually utilising that technology, like all technologies, and really for the value that it was developed for, and that's the development of our board's skills and insights that we could then, create through our action plans.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that you had it and you didn't know that you needed it until you suddenly needed it. And you'd lost these 6 board members and you're thinking, oh my goodness, and I'm new to the board. So can you be more specific about how it's helped the organisation? I do know that this product has the great value of having those add-on modules for specific sectors. So was that one of the really useful things in that it dealt with the governance around health, which of course, in some sense, corporate governance is corporate governance, but you've got clinical governance, you've got governance that's different for different sectors. So how has it helped the organisation?
Well, there are 2 parts to the product. One part is the total governance insight. So where each board member gets the opportunity to actually complete a questionnaire, identifying what their insight is about the current state of play with the organisation. And then a convener from Fee's team actually helped interview each individual to flesh out from them, what is it that we're doing well and what is it that we really need to focus on? What still needed to be, a focus of ours. So that happened with each individual, and then a report was created that I then sat down as chair with Fee and the convener to review, what did that tell me in terms of risk? What did it tell me in terms of the skills of the board in terms of balance? What did it tell me about our strategy and how, we were going to develop it? And what did it tell me about the gaps within our board as well? So that produced the governance reporting module, particularly around clinical governance, which seemed to be the biggest gap at the time. And it identified for us what did we need to focus on as a board to be able to ask those questions around the board table when we got together of our clinical directors and of our CEO. So it helped us immensely in creating that strategy. We couldn't have done it without it, I don't think. And it gave everybody a voice around the table because everybody had that interview confidentially. They were able to speak freely about what they viewed was working and what needed to be developed. That included the CEO-chair relationship. That included the communications around the table, and it included reporting, it included the risks they could see, etc. So it was very, very valuable.
Were people resistant to it when you brought it in, or did you find that everybody really welcomed the opportunity?
I think, if I'm honest, people kind of thought, oh, why are we spending so much time having to be interviewed? And why do we have to spend time sitting at the computer and filling out questions? And that's an interesting point, because one of the board members that I, really, really value around the table basically said to me probably about a month ago, she said, "You brought something to life here. I have really learned a lot through my own personal, because not only do we do it as a group, but we also have the skills development matrix, which focuses on the skills gaps of each individual board member." And she said, "You took that piece of software and you brought it to life, and you created value for me personally." And, nobody wants to sit there through lots and lots of videos, and we're all busy. We don't want to be doing or learning about stuff we already know. But if it's focused on yourself, which the skills development matrix, the other module that we introduce later, does, then all of a sudden you see the why for the individuals, not only for the why for the board. So yes, initially there was a bit of hesitancy in terms of, well, and especially for those who had been on the board, who had the technology in the past and never used it. I think they were questioning, why do we have to spend so much time on it? Possibly, they didn't say it directly, but there's always resistance to technology. I think that if there's a positive with COVID, is that it's introduced technology as your friend, not as your enemy. As it's a real.
That's a great point, and because compliance for compliance sake drives everybody mad. But if you're actually ticking the box for compliance, you're ticking a box for governance, but you're also personally developing, you're growing as a team, you're working as a team, and so the board is actually individual board members. You are saying are able to say, I've actually got something personally from this. I am a better director as a result of what I have been doing here. And so that's a really big win-win for the organisation. So specifically as a chair, because you are the first among equals, you have to, herd the cats, manage the group, make sure people are happy. You've got so many other jobs really, and a lot of them are related to people and sort of the HR function. So how as a chair has it made your job easier?
Well, as a chair, especially because I was a new chair, but any chair really, to be able to quickly see through a report, a traffic light report, where your gaps are and where you need to focus on, and have that data at your fingertips so that you can start to focus everybody around what's really, really important, without second guessing it. That was really, really important. And the other piece that I found really valuable is we had a new CEO join us last year, and we asked her to actually complete it as well. And we created a separate report for her. We did a comparison around our perception and her perception. And that was valuable in terms of our discussion, in terms of where are we going to take this, what do we need to do for her, for us, for the organisation. So things that we thought she was right on top of, she was telling us that she was still developing that and needed support. And things that we thought that she needed support in, she'd actually been already having matured that and had developed it. So for me, data is a really great indicator of where you can actually, it's not everything, but it gives you a focus and it gives you the ability to point to something, especially with all the reporting that the department now expects of boards, to be able to point to quite easily at at a drop of a hat. There's justification behind the decisions you make and the investments that you're going to make on behalf of the board.
And so how important is it that you've got access to this permanently? It's not a once and done thing. Many of these products in the past around board evaluation have been not an online process. They're once and done. Whereas this actually, you can go back, you can see the history, you can actually track where you've come as a board. And so you can see that constantly through your traffic lights. You can access all of this material online. I'm imagining, particularly for a distributed board in rural and regional areas for busy people, that's a really critical component.
Oh, absolutely. And what's interesting is you can see how much we've developed in certain areas. I mean, we sat around last Sunday, actually, as a board. We had our strategic planning day, the entire day. And the way we structured that and the way we structure our board meetings now are so different to how we structured them when we first came in. I mean, it just doesn't look the same. The reports that we get from the CEO, they are brilliant. You know, we can actually understand them. You know, when we first started, we had reports, but we were looking at these reports and thinking, what is it telling us, and why is it structured this way? Now we've got an overview to start off with. The reports are structured. Some of them have got, you know, a traffic report, you know, finance reports have all got traffic lights and explanations and links to certain discussions we've been having, or to grants, etc., or to, you know, some of the community feedback. A consumer participation committee, the reporting that we can provide to them, that's fantastic. So, and what is also interesting is when we first undertook the Governance Evaluator questionnaire as a board, we were all very optimistic. I think we all thought we were fantastic. It was green, 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 green. And then after we did the questionnaire and after we really had a hard look at some of these areas of risk, and some of induction, for example, or whatever, the second year reporting and had come up with more red lights than green lights, and more yellow amber lights, because it highlighted now we actually were more informed. We understood actually more of the gaps, and that was good because that meant that we could go back and start to develop these areas. So by the third year, we started to see green lights that really meant something. And particularly when we compared them with the CEO report as well. So it's really been invaluable. It's been great.
Now, you're in online education, so you've seen a lot of online products. In terms of, just put your technical hat on here, just in terms of assessing it as a technical platform, how do you rate it?
I rate it highly, and I say that because I've, as you say, I've been in this industry of online since the 80s, early 80s, when it all started. Obviously, it wasn't online on the internet back then. It was videos and mainframe training, and now we're sophisticated. Now everything's online. And my belief is if it takes a couple of clicks and you're there, you haven't lost anybody. It needs to be intuitive, and it really is. It's very easy to use, very easy to draw out what you need, the reporting's simple. And I talk from both as a user and as a manager of it, you know, as someone who needs the reporting and the data. It's got to be intuitive, and the Governance Evaluator is, and it's got to be easy to get into. And the other thing I love about it is it's dynamic. So there's a new report out, there's a new video out, there's some new data out, it's automatically added to the system. And the other thing that's added to the system is you're not reinventing the wheel. The Director's Toolkit, for example, which is sitting there on the website of the Department of Health, we provide a link from Governance Evaluator. So when someone starts, they've actually linked straight out to that without having to go and find it. So it's one thing to say, you really need to read chapter 7 of this particular book. We've actually put a link to that book. You go straight to it. We've put a link to an expert in a particular, you know, in risk, or we've put a link to clinical expert, or if there's been an AGM or there's been a particular conference where we've had a number of speakers, we've provided that access. And as you know, technology through Zoom, through whatever, all of a sudden you don't have to be there. You do not even have to invest in being there. You've got the link. You can actually be part of the group. You can be part of that audience anytime when it suits you. And I think that's what's really important about the technology. It's when it suits our busy board members to be able to access this material and to keep themselves developing. And the other thing that I probably am passionate about is that nothing is a one-off. You know, with all my experience, I don't know a lot. You know, that's, you know, joining a board really makes you see all the gaps that you have. But that's fine. It's ongoing learning, and you want to be able to access what you need, and this is what the tool does, and it is very simple.
And last question, many smaller organisations or even medium-sized ones, many ones where they've got non-profit boards or where the directors aren't compensated, have often felt that board evaluation is beyond them in terms of price, because many of them out there are expensive. And so boards think, oh my goodness, I can't invest all of this when we're actually running an aged care business, or we're running all these other sort of, you know, major businesses that require every dollar that we have. one of the things that I've always been astounded with is how affordable the Governance Evaluator is. And so is that your experience too?
Absolutely, it is. And when I first went to FEE to talk about all the various options, I started the conversation looking at purely just the software. And when I looked at the software, I thought, well, I'm going to have resistance because, first of all, I've got to get people to do it. And then it's what do we do with, because anything that you implement, it's like, when you buy a computer, you get Excel software and you get PowerPoint and you get Word. But if all you need is Word, then Excel is superfluous, isn't it? It's just sitting there until the day you might need it. And I felt that with Governance Evaluator, particularly with the lack of experience of people using technology to learn or to leverage their skills, I was going to have an issue around that. So we started talking about how we would actually get the leverage, I suppose, everything, and it was the convener, having that individual expert, an independent expert, if you like, rather than me, because I didn't want anybody to feel like they had to treat me with kid gloves and Maryanne won't want to hear this or whatever. An independent convener can sit with you, and the whole package actually was very affordable. One of the options that came to the table when I first started was investing in people doing a one-off director's course. And look, and I have done the director's course. I've invested in that myself, the Australian Institute. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But it is a one-off and it is just for one individual, and there's no guarantee that individual will stay with you. With the Governance Evaluator, I felt the investment was not for the short term, it was actually for the long term. It was for the next chair, it was for the next CEO, because they would be able to dig in deep and not be in the position I was in and the others were in when we first started it, in terms of, what as a board do we have in terms of diversity and where do we need to focus? It's all captured in the data, it's all captured in the reports, and it continues to be captured. So it was an investment not only in the present but also in the future. And we're seeing that now, after 4 years, that was a fantastic investment. And what I'm encouraging others to think about is technology isn't limited to just us as Timboon and District Healthcare Service. I'd like to see us all participate, because if we've got a repository of skills and we're all tapping into it and looking for mentors, for example, for a particular individual joining your board, but you don't have the skill set in terms of mentors, but they're sitting in Colac or they're sitting in Gippsland, then we can actually link those people through the technology, through Governance Evaluator, and really leverage, the work that the boards can do and give everybody a voice. Each individual has their own action plan because they've completed their own skills development questionnaire. They all know what they have to get on with. An individual consultant will contact them, or I will contact them to make sure they're on track. And the biggest place that we've seen huge results is in our induction. We have found, particularly with COVID, because we couldn't have everybody who joined us actually meet face-to-face, actually start their induction training through the Governance Evaluator way before they started. So before they started, they were hooked up to a mentor. Their induction plan was online. We did their skills matrix, their individual skills questionnaire, with the convener identifying what it is that they needed to do. All of that happening before their first board meeting in July. By the time they got to the board meeting in July, they'd already spoken to the mentor at TDHS, me, been involved with the admin team, the CEO. They'd already been to our Facebook page. They've read all of our documents. They've read a lot of reports, etc. So I found that their voice appeared in July. We didn't have to wait for someone to feel confident enough to speak. They felt that they'd already, in a position to contribute, which is what you want, isn't it?
Yes. And look, thank you very much, Maryanne, for outlining to us a system that really is accessible and affordable for everybody. It's governance, it's improving governance for all organisations, and it's actually enabling people to come along the journey with them. So it's growing with with the organisation. So the long term versus short term. And I think that's a really, really nice way of thinking about it. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your insights. And a reminder to everybody that WOBFL members do receive a 10% discount when they buy the Governance Evaluator service for their board, committee or council. And registered members, those who are not full members, can also access the product but will not receive a discount. But we strongly recommend that you do and that you sign up to access this really brilliant service. So once again, thank you very much and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.